If you ever want to watch institutional racism do a little dance in broad daylight, stroll into a bank lobby while black, broke-looking, and carrying a burlap sack. It was 9:06 a.m. at Crown Dominion National Bank, a glass and marble cathedral of white-collar ego and generational wealth laundering. The staff was already deep into their Monday morning rituals. Overpriced espresso, fake laughter echoing off high ceilings, and discussions about crypto portfolios no one understood. Then the front doors hissed open. He didn't arrive with a camera crew or even a clipboard. Just a bag, a slouch, and enough wrinkles to make the security guard nervous. Michael Jackson, no, not the moonwalker, calm down, walked in with the kind of authority that made receptionists sweat and managers reach for plausible deniability. But don't worry, the only thing this man was carrying was history and receipts. He wore a wool coat that had seen too many winters, shoes that might have known the civil rights movement personally, and an expression forged from 70 years of being told to wait outside, which is ironic because he built the inside. "Excuse me, sir. Deliveries go around back," chirped the receptionist without even blinking. Her name tag sparkled. So did her arrogance. "I'm not delivering anything," Michael replied. "I'm here to take something back." Of course, that kind of confidence on a black man who doesn't look like he owns a yacht is grounds for a full-blown microaggression symphony. Cue security. Enter Derek, a man who looked like he wrestled minorities for sport and called it crowd control. Derek approached like Michael was a suspicious package in a Gucci store. "Sir, you can't be here," Derek said, chest puffing like he was about to win Employee of the Month for ejecting an elderly threat. Michael just looked at him and said, "I built this bank." A comedy. The executives in the glass office behind the lobby nearly dropped their oat milk lattes. One even clutched his pearls client accounts. The receptionist laughed. Derek didn't. He reached for Michael's arm. Then it happened. The sack hit the marble with a heavy thud. Not loud, not flashy. Just final. Like a gavel hitting a courtroom bench. Derek stepped back. The receptionist blinked. From the sack, Michael pulled history. Ledgers, legal documents, and one particular piece of paper that would soon turn the bank's blood cold. An original certificate naming him, Michael E. Jackson, as sole founder and majority owner. Silence swept across the lobby like a courtroom verdict. That was the moment the building remembered who built it. Too bad they had already forgotten who they were. But don't worry. The old man remembered everything. And he was just getting started. There's something magical about watching arrogance melt in real time. One moment you're snickering at the black man with the busted coat and busted shoes. The next, you're staring at the very paper that signs your six-figure job into question. The bank manager arrived, of course, wafting in like a cologne commercial with too many adjectives and not enough conscience. His name? Jasper Hawthorne III. Yes, the third. Because no racist infrastructure is complete without at least 3 generations of delusion. "What's the issue here?" he asked, already annoyed that something had interrupted his morning ritual of passive discrimination and aggressively stupid leadership. Michael didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He pointed at the certificate. Yellowed. Fragile. Real. "This bank belongs to me," he said again, like he'd said it to himself every morning for the last 70 years. Jasper snorted. "I'm sorry, what's your name again?" "You've been cashing checks in my name since 1952. Shouldn't you already know?" The room sucked in its breath. Derek, security guard number 1, now demoted to sweaty background character, was trying very hard to fade into the ficus plant. "Too late, big guy. Your fingerprints are on the handle of history." Michael, ever the quiet architect of chaos, reached into the sack again. Another relic. This time, a black and white photo. A young black man in a sharp suit, standing next to steel beams and a wooden frame with a hand-painted sign. Future site of Crown Dominion National Bank. No doubt about it, it was him. "I was 29, Michael said softly. "Took my war bonds, my mother's land, and a loan I wasn't supposed to get. Built this place with my own hands. Poured the concrete myself. But you all poured something else over it. Lies." Now, the staff wasn't even pretending to be busy. The tellers had stopped counting. The interns had stopped pretending to understand Excel. One young woman, black, sharp-eyed, stood near the corner with her phone out, subtly recording. Her name tag said Simone Davis. Michael gave her a slight nod. Jasper, realizing that public humiliation was circling his perfectly gelled hairline, tried to pivot. Even if this document is legitimate, there are procedures. Michael cut him off with a look that could have cracked marble. Spare me the policy song and dance. You know what happened. You inherited a theft and called it tradition. Jasper bristled. This is a professional institution. We don't. You buried a man, Michael said, voice low and sharp, and built your legacy on the grave. Simone finally spoke up. I remember that name. There's a cornerstone outside. I pass it every morning. Cornerstone, Jasper scoffed. That's decorative. No, sir, Simone replied. It says, founded 1952, M.E. Jackson. Jasper looked like he just bit into a lemon named Karma. You people always forget the paper trail, Michael said, packing each word with 70 years of quiet fury. But paper doesn't forget. The room turned silent again. Michael stepped forward, placed the ledger on the polished counter like it was a sacred text, and calmly added, If you think I came back for money, you don't understand what you stole. No one moved. No one laughed. The bank's security system wasn't triggered that morning, but its foundation, it just started cracking. If you've ever wondered what it looks like when an entire corporate lie gets dragged into the daylight by a man in a coat held together with hope and duct tape, this was it. The silence in the lobby was now less awkward and more apocalyptic. You could hear a pin drop, or more likely, the sound of white privilege unclenching. Simone stepped up to the counter. No longer just a bank teller. She had become, in that moment, the voice of long-suppressed memory. Mr. Jackson, she said, lifting the brittle certificate with reverence. This is history. Michael gave her a quiet nod. The kind of nod black elders give when they see you finally connecting the dots they've carried in silence for decades. Then the real circus arrived. The automatic doors slid open again, whoosh, ushering in Matthew Langford, CFO of the bank's parent company, UHB Holdings. A man whose hairline was retreating from morality and whose suit screamed white-collar impunity. He took one look at Michael, scoffed, and asked the room, Who let a homeless man into my building? Yes, my building. As if black people couldn't own anything that wasn't spiritual trauma or unpaid internships. Simone bristled. Your building. Langford ignored her, turned to Jasper. Get this handled. Handled. Like Michael, I was a glitch in the matrix of generational wealth. Like truth was a clerical error. Michael reached into the sack once more. This time, no document. Just a photo. A photograph aged by time but not by memory. Him, in 1951, standing proudly in front of steel beams and optimism. Next to him, John Wallace, his former business partner. The one who said, Just sign it, Mike. It's only temporary. Guess what wasn't temporary? The betrayal. Michael's voice didn't rise. It never had to. That's me, he said, pointing to the photo. Before the paperwork disappeared. Before the board meetings were held without me. Before the accident that left me in a hospital while my name got scrubbed from history. Langford narrowed his eyes. And, Michael leaned in, voice sharp as shattered glass. And I didn't come back for revenge. I came back with proof. And a witness. From the back of the crowd, a voice spoke. I remember that cornerstone. It was the janitor, Mr. Booker. Old, bent and black like a walking archive of the city. My daddy poured the cement with him, told me the man who built this bank was named Jackson. But they stopped saying his name after 1960. Langford chuckled dryly. So now we're listening to janitors? Michael snapped his fingers, fast and precise. Simone, like clockwork, pulled out her phone. Say that again, she said. For the camera. Now Langford's smile twitched. Because if there's one thing a racist fears more than being wrong, it's being recorded while being wrong. Michael stepped forward again. I built this place with hands that America tried to break. You stole it with pens and signatures. But guess what? He raised the photo like a final exhibit. I still have the original key. Langford's face dropped a shade. The staff gasped. Simone whispered, "You're not crazy, sir. You're the real founder." Michael finally smiled. Not for triumph, but because the reckoning had just begun. And the cornerstone? It wasn't decorative anymore. It should have ended when Michael pulled out the cornerstone photo. But no, because white-collar arrogance doesn't die easy, it doubles down. Langford adjusted his cufflinks like that somehow adjusted the truth. "Look," he said with the patience of someone trying to explain algebra to a squirrel. "Even if you're who you say you are, we're not going to hand over a building because a man with a burlap sack walked in with souvenirs." "Souvenirs," Michael repeated flatly. "The photo, the deed, the 1951 certificate, the ledger with his handwriting. Souvenirs." "Sir," Simone said to Langford, camera still rolling, "you might want to stop talking, but privilege doesn't read the room. It remodels it." Langford waved her off. "We have legal procedures for this. Proper documentation, chain of custody, transfer agreements." Michael raised a hand, stopping him mid-ramble. "You want proper documentation?" He reached into the sack and pulled out something even more dangerous than faded ink. A cassette recorder. Langford blinked. "What is this? Nostalgia?" Michael clicked play. The hiss of magnetic tape filled the air. Then, a younger Michael's voice, full of ambition and suspicion. "John, you said this was just a temporary signature." Then another voice, smooth and oily. "Come on, Mike. Let me handle the board. It's just a formality." Then, silence. Then, click. Gasps. Langford's face turned a color Crayola hasn't named yet. "That was the last time I set foot in this building," Michael said. "Right before I disappeared into a hospital bed, while my name disappeared from every hallway." Jasper looked like someone had shoved ice down his collar. Ashley, the receptionist who once smirked, now stood behind her desk, mouth half open, as if waiting for a script that never came. "Okay," Langford said, clearing his throat. "So, what? Do you want compensation? A plaque? Some recognition in the newsletter?" Michael stepped closer. "What I want," he said, calm as a judge, "is not a newsletter. I want every lie y'all laminated and hung on these walls to come down. I want every employee who works here to know whose marble they're walking on. And I want the name outside this building to reflect who built it." Jasper tried again. "There are processes, sir." Michael looked around the room. "Funny. There were no processes when y'all erased me." That's when Carla stepped forward. Carla, the senior loan officer, black, mid-50s, had survived 2 recessions and 1,000 microaggressions. She had been silent till now, but no longer. "I've worked here for 24 years, she said, "and I've never once heard the name Michael Jackson on any founder's memo, annual report, or wall plaque. But I know every white man in a painting on this floor." Langford interrupted. "Ms. Carla, that's not relevant." She cut him off without blinking. "It's very relevant, because I'm done working in a building that buries black legacies like bad press." Then the unthinkable happened. One by one, employees started walking forward. A white teller placed a flower from her desk onto the counter beside Michael's photo. A young intern offered his seat. Someone from HR whispered, "Sir, if you'd like, we can begin a formal review of historical ownership right now." Michael stood in the middle of it all silent, unmoved. Not because he wasn't feeling anything, but because for the first time in 70 years the building was listening. Outside, a local reporter pulled up in a beat-up news van, tipped off by a tweet from Simone. "Man walks into bank with sack, leaves with receipts. It might be the founder. Stay tuned." Inside, Michael adjusted the corner of the photograph so it faced everyone. "Tell your lawyers," he said finally. "The man with the sack isn't going away, and the key, it was still in his pocket, waiting for the right door to open." The door clicked open with a soft, corporate hum. It wasn't a dramatic sound, no thunder, no triumphant music, just a quiet, mechanical unlocking. The kind of sound that usually signaled a keycard had been accepted. Only this time, it wasn't a keycard. It was a brass key, old, heavy, etched with a single number. Number 001. Michael Jackson stepped into the executive suite of Union Hill Bank, not as a guest, not as a trespasser, but as something far more dangerous in corporate America. A black man with proof. The office looked exactly like a lie, and it was well kept. Polished walnut desk, glass trophy cases, framed awards for leadership in banking. A glossy portrait of C.K. Madison, aka the corporate ghost they invented to erase Michael's name. Michael's eyes swept the room like someone inspecting a crime scene. Because, let's be honest, that's exactly what it was. Behind him, Carla followed, her heels clicking like a metronome of justice. She carried the ledger, the deed, and every crumpled receipt that white-collar theft had hoped time would shred. "I've never been in here," Carla said, voice low. "I always thought only the elite got access." Michael didn't answer. He walked over to the bookcase, pulled a biography of Union Hill's founding visionaries off the shelf, and flipped it open. There were pictures, plaques, celebrations. Everyone but him. "Visionaries," he muttered. "Must have had cataracts." From the hallway came the sound of rapid footsteps. Timothy Ashcroft, the current bank manager, sweating through his collar like someone who just realized his LinkedIn might need updating. "You can't just walk in here," Ashcroft huffed, clearly out of breath. "This is a secure area. You can't." "Actually," Carla said, holding up a decades-old letter of authorization with Michael's signature at the bottom. "He can." Ashcroft's eyes scanned the paper like it might suddenly vanish if he blinked too hard. This can't be binding," he stammered. "It's dated 1952. That predates our digital records." Michael turned, slow and sharp. "Exactly." The room fell silent again. Ashcroft reached for his phone. "I need to call legal." "You already did," Michael said calmly. They didn't pick up, because by now, the legal department was in meltdown. Somewhere in the building, interns were printing 70-year-old memos. Paralegals were Googling ownership reversals after corporate erasure. And a junior attorney was definitely crying in a stairwell. "I'm not here for a fight," Michael said, walking toward the massive window that overlooked the city. "I'm here for the truth, and I brought my name with me." Behind him, Carla unrolled the original articles of incorporation across the desk. And that's when it happened. Ashcroft, cornered, sweating, stammering, asked the dumbest question of the day. "What exactly do you want?" Michael turned slowly, eyes narrowed. "I want the next black kid who walks into this bank to know whose floor they're standing on. I want my grandchildren to Google my name and find my history, not a filing error. And I want every executive who's ever patted themselves on the back for diversity to feel what it's like to be outnumbered by the truth." Boom! You could hear the building exhale. It was as if every brick, every hallway, and every overlooked ledger finally had permission to stop lying. Carla looked at Ashcroft, then at Michael. "We should call a board meeting," she said. Ashcroft swallowed. "They'll never approve this." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Then they can explain to the media why the black man whose name is on the deed just found his office occupied by frauds." And as if on cue, Simone texted Carla. "Media vans pulling up outside. It's happening." Ashcroft dropped into the leather chair behind the desk like a man being sentenced. He was, because the man with the sack now had an address. The boardroom was built to intimidate. 12 feet of mahogany, floor-to-ceiling glass. Leather chairs were arranged like a tribunal. And lining the walls, oil portraits of Union Hill Bank's founding fathers. All white, all smiling. None of them was named Michael Jackson. That was about to change. Michael stepped inside, not with fanfare but with facts. His worn leather satchel slung over his shoulder like a soldier carrying the flag. Carla followed, holding a binder so thick it could file a lawsuit just by being dropped on a table. The board members looked up, 6 of them, in suits that cost more than some people's mortgages, with faces that screamed, "I'm important and unbothered." at least until they recognized the man standing across from them. "Mr. Jackson," said Gregory Moore, the chairman. His voice dripped with fake civility. "We've been made aware of your situation, and we sympathize. But understand we have protocols, legal processes." Michael didn't blink. "I'm not here for your sympathy." He opened the satchel and pulled out the original articles of incorporation, signed, notarized, and yellowed like justice that had aged in a drawer. "I'm here with the truth." Carla placed the binder on the table and flipped it open like a prosecutor building her case. "There's no way this is enforceable," scoffed one board member. "These documents are ancient." "So is your entire business model," Carla shot back. Gregory forced a chuckle. "Let's not get emotional." "Sir," Carla said coolly, "I work in finance. The day I get emotional, you'll be bankrupt before lunch." Michael stepped forward and laid the brass key on the table. "This key," he said, voice calm but sharp, "opened the original vault. You remember vault number 001, right? The one nobody talks about because it still holds records from before the rebranding?" Gregory's jaw tightened. Another board member reached for a bottle of water. His hands were shaking. "Look," Gregory tried again. "Even if what you say is true, this board has no legal precedent to simply—" Carla interrupted. "Then explain these." She slid over the minutes from a 1971 emergency board vote, signed by everyone but Michael. Votes made without quorum. Ownership transferred without consent. One signature was forged. Gregory's eyes darted to the document like it might catch fire. "You brought this to embarrass us?" he asked. Michael finally smiled. "No, I brought this to remind you." He stepped closer to the portraits on the wall. "All of these men," he said, pointing, "built their careers off a story that erased me. But what they didn't count on is that the story isn't finished yet." The room fell silent. Then Carla dropped the bomb. "We'll be filing for full reinstatement of ownership by the end of the day." "You'll lose," a board member snapped. "We have lawyers. We have PR." Michael nodded. "And I have time. 70 years of it." He reached into the satchel and placed a cassette tape on the table. "What's that?" Gregory asked. Michael pressed play. The room filled with grainy audio. "Just sign it, Mike. It's temporary. You said that last time. You're not being erased. We're protecting the bank." Click. The silence that followed wasn't just uncomfortable. It was a confession in surround sound. Gregory's face went pale. Carla's chin lifted. "And Michael?" He looked at the men who once locked him out and said, softly, "You thought I disappeared, but I was just waiting." He turned to leave, not asking for permission because founders don't need it. Carla followed. As she reached the door, she paused, looked back and said, "You have 24 hours to respond, or you'll be reading about this in the Wall Street Journal." The door closed with the finality of a gavel. Behind it, a boardroom full of ghosts, finally seeing their reflection. It started with a blog post, not CNN, not the Times, just a tiny corner of the internet, Union Hill Voices, run by a retired bank clerk named Jasmine Lee, who still had a dial-up modem and a vengeance for erasure. The title was simple, "The Man Who Built the Bank," and underneath it, a grainy photo of Michael Jackson standing in the lobby of Union Hill Bank with a burlap sack at his feet, faded documents in his hand, and something in his eyes that didn't blink anymore. By 7:15 a.m., the post had 300 views. By noon, 20,000. By 3 p.m., it had become a hashtag #GiveItBack. And by 5:48 p.m., Union Hill Bank's PR team officially entered meltdown mode. "We need to get ahead of this," barked someone in a navy suit, sweating through his double-breasted denial. "Put out a statement." "About what?" the social media manager asked, blinking at the millions of comments piling up like unpaid debts. "About why y'all erased a black man from the company he founded? Tell me again how that cornerstone with his name is decorative. So, y'all tackled the CEO and called him a crazy person? Yikes." The PR team's first move? Blame confusion. Blame a clerical error. Blame, legacy, miscommunication. The internet's response? Laughter. Loud, savage, and laced with gifs. Unfortunately for Union Hill, the receipts were already out. Carla, the senior loan officer, had uploaded high-res scans of the charter, the deed, the articles of incorporation, and yes, the cassette recording which was now playing on TikTok with captions like, "Just sign it, Mike. It's temporary." White Man, 1971, probably thought he was slick. By nightfall, The Root, Blavity, and Forbes Black had already published full features. The headlines said it all. Erased founder reclaims bank. 70 years later. From janitor to CEO? No, he was the CEO all along. Union Hill Bank's founding lie uncovered. Outside the building, the protest signs came swiftly. You can evict a man from history, but don't expect him to forget the address. Black labor built it. Black truth returns for the deed. Even the old marble lion statues outside the bank were wearing protest signs. Inside, Gregory Moore was choking on press calls and polite inquiries from people who never used to call unless they needed funding for their third vacation home. One board member fainted during a Zoom meeting. Another suggested rebranding the bank under a more inclusive mission, as if slapping diversity stock photos on the homepage would erase 7 decades of theft. But the worst part? Michael hadn't even spoken yet. He hadn't given a single interview. No Instagram story. No Facebook post. No tweet. He let the truth speak. Raw, documented, dusty, and undeniable. In fact, the only thing Michael had posted was a one-line reply to Jasmine Lee's blog on the comments section. "Thank you for remembering, MJ." That comment alone got 89,000 likes. Ashley, the receptionist who once waved toward the service entrance, had now deleted all her social media after being doxxed by the internet. Stephen, the security guard who grabbed Michael's coat, had been quietly placed on leave. His badge now buzzed red at the employee door. And upstairs, the executives who had laughed at the crazy old man were now refreshing their LinkedIn profiles while praying their names weren't in the leaked memo titled Operation Quiet Erasure. But the damage was done. Michael hadn't just walked back into the bank. He'd walked back into the national conversation. And now people were asking dangerous questions. How many other black founders had been erased? How many cornerstones bore names no one ever read? How many crazy old men were just patient geniuses with bags full of truth? Inside his apartment, Michael watched the firestorm unfold quietly. He didn't smile, because for him, this wasn't a comeback. It was justice finally catching up to time. Union Hill Bank's boardroom had seen a lot over the years. Backdoor deals, insider trading whispers, golf invitations written on the back of acquisition contracts. But today it was about to witness something it had never seen before. Accountability. The door opened, not with the usual polished efficiency of a corporate assistant, but with the quiet, unhurried dignity of a man who had waited 73 years to be heard. Michael Jackson walked in. No entourage, no PR team, no lawyer in a $2,000 suit whispers, "Let me handle this." Just a man in a charcoal suit that still bore the creases of generational grief and a binder thicker than most of their resumes. Carla followed behind, her heels silent but her presence loud. In her arms, the ledger, the deed, the articles of incorporation, the truth. The 6 board members sat frozen. 4 white men in tailored suits, 1 Asian American woman in pearls, 1 black man who looked like he was praying no one asked where he stood. Gregory Moore, chairman of the board, sat at the head of the table. A man who had built a career off legacy leadership, which, loosely translated, meant inheriting power and protecting it like a dragon with low self-esteem. "Mr. Jackson," Moore began, his voice as smooth as it was strained. "We've reviewed your documents, and, while they are extensive, we must proceed with caution." Michael raised one eyebrow. "Is that what you call it? Caution?" 70 years of silence. One of the board members shifted in his seat. Another cleared his throat. Gregory pressed on. "This isn't about race." Michael raised a hand. "Stop. Right there." The room snapped to stillness. If this wasn't about race, Michael said, I would have been on this side of the table 70 years ago. If this wasn't about race, you wouldn't have renamed the founding conference room after a man who filed fake documents while I was in the hospital. And if this wasn't about race, y'all wouldn't have tackled a black elder in the middle of a bank he paid to build. Silence. Not the awkward kind. The kind that crawled up the walls and sat on their shoulders. Carla stepped forward and laid out the binder. Opened it. Page 1. Union Hill Bank Founding Charter, 1951. Signed, Michael Elijah Jackson, 100% ownership. Next page. Transfer of ownership to John W. Ashcroft. Dated 3 days after Michael's documented hospitalization following a workplace accident. No signature from Michael. No legal authorization. Just a board vote in a room he wasn't allowed to enter. This is forgery, Carla said, calm and clear. Gregory paled. You have no proof those signatures weren't valid. Michael reached into his jacket and pulled out the cassette. Set it on the table. Pressed play. Mike, just sign it. It's temporary. You said that last time. Come on. Let me handle the board. You're not handling it. You're erasing me. Click. Silence again, this time shamed. The only Blackboard member, a man named Tyrone Marshall, finally spoke. I read the articles last night. I saw the cornerstone. I've worked here 15 years and never once heard your name. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson. Michael nodded once. Sorry doesn't fix what was stolen. But truth might. Gregory's hands trembled. What is it you want, Mr. Jackson? Michael walked to the head of the table, the seat that was supposed to be his all along. He didn't sit. He just looked down at Gregory and said, I don't want revenge. I want to return. I want my name where it was supposed to be. I want every document corrected. I want this building renamed. And I want every employee to know exactly who built the floor they walk on. He paused. Because if you don't, I will bury this place under the same silence you tried to bury me with. Gregory tried to speak, but his tongue had found the weight of history, and history had teeth. Gregory Moore was not used to losing. He had chaired this board for 12 years. He'd hosted golf tournaments with senators, cut ribbons with mayors, and had once refused to attend a DEI summit because inclusion should be implied. He thought he was untouchable. Until, of course, he was touched by reality. More specifically, by a black man with a tape recorder and a 70-year-old truth. And now that truth was everywhere. By the time Michael and Carla left that boardroom, the wheels had already begun to fall off the Bentley of illusion in which Union Hill Bank had been cruising in for decades. It started with the leak. Someone, no one admitted who, sent the cassette recording and a photo of the forged documents to a small black-owned online newspaper called the Equity Times. By lunch, the article was trending. By dinner, every major outlet from CNN to BuzzFeed News had picked it up. By breakfast, Union Hill Bank was trending under hashtag Reclaim the Vault and hashtag Michael Built It. And then the internet did what the internet does best. It dismantled Union Hill's reputation with surgical precision and gifs. One tweet read, Michael Jackson didn't walk into a bank. He walked into history with a sack full of receipts. And now they're all over your feed. Another posted, so you'll really try to erase a black man from the bank he built? And still used his ledger? The caucasity is astronomical. But it wasn't just black Twitter roasting. Investors started pulling out. Customers began closing accounts with the kind of speed usually reserved for fire drills. One former client posted a TikTok while cutting up her Union Hill debit card. If Michael Jackson ain't welcome in your lobby, then neither is my money. Within 48 hours, $67 million in deposits had evaporated. Then came the press conference. Michael didn't want one. He wasn't a man of microphones. But the people, they demanded it. And so, on the front steps of Union Hill Bank, beneath the very sign that had erased his name, Michael stood behind a podium that read, Truth holds interest longer than lies. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't cry. He simply spoke like a man who knew his story was no longer a secret. I didn't come back to destroy a bank, Michael said. I came back to reclaim the bricks I laid with my own hands. He paused, letting the cameras drink in every word. This building was born from my dream, and when I almost died, they turned that dream into a lie. But dreams don't die easy. Not when they belong to a whole community. The crowd, hundreds deep, roared. From behind him, Simone raised a banner. Put his name back. Carla added one more, this time in gold. Meanwhile, inside the crumbling ivory tower of Union Hill's boardroom, the mood was, well, bankrupt. Gregory had just received a message from legal. Client contracts terminated. Investors pulling liquidity. Community filing class action. Brightwell Holdings considering distancing. In other words, run. But there was nowhere to run. Not from viral truth. Not from a founding deed signed in 1951. And certainly not from a black man who never needed to shout to be heard. Just waited long enough for the silence to become unbearable. By nightfall, the bank's website was updated, unintentionally poetic. The About Us section, once filled with whitewashed nonsense like, founded by visionary minds in a post-war America, had been replaced by, this page is currently under reconstruction. Oh, how appropriate. The final nail wasn't loud. It didn't come with fireworks. No helicopters. No scandalous exit interview. Came by certified mail. A letter from Michael Jackson's legal team, neatly printed, professionally signed, offering to purchase the Union Hill Bank headquarters outright, in full, cash. The board, already neck-deep in legal fees and hemorrhaging public trust faster than their quarterly losses, had no real choice. Consider this, Michael's attorney had written, an opportunity to return stolen property voluntarily. Before history does it for you. The board voted, and with a bitter 5-1 count, they agreed to sell. That one dissenting vote? Gregory Moore, of course. The man still clinging to a vision of a world that no longer wanted to see his kind of leadership, pale, patronizing, and power-drunk. He muttered as he signed the papers, "We're letting a janitor buy a bank." Michael, sitting across the table in a sharp charcoal suit with silver cufflinks shaped like lion heads, gave a small, amused smile. "Correction," he said, leaning forward, "you're letting the founder take back his building." By Monday, the signs came down. Literally. The gold-plated Union Hill Bank. Letters were unscrewed and carted away in silence. A crowd gathered outside. Employees, press, and locals. All watching what felt like a historical exorcism. And when did the new sign go up? Jackson Union Trust. The cheers could be heard 4 blocks away. Inside, things changed fast. Reception, Carla Davis. Her first order of business? Throwing away the guest badge printer with the default setting labeled non-executive. Security, no more Derek or watch his hands protocols. Michael personally hired a diverse, trained, trauma-informed team, the kind that could de-escalate without defaulting to chokeholds. The glass boardroom, once reserved for men named Chad and Warren, was renamed the Simone D. Equity Hall. And Vanessa, the former intern who watched the whole debacle from the mezzanine and nearly spoke up, she now ran community relations. "We don't just open accounts here," she said. "We open doors." And Ashley Monroe? She was last seen crying on a podcast titled, "Cancel Culture Ruined My Life," ignoring the fact that her name was never canceled, just finally held accountable. Her GoFundMe raised $273.84, mostly from family. As for Gregory Moore, he applied for a consulting role at another bank. Michael's old friend Carla intercepted the request and faxed it back with one word stamped in red ink. Declined. The bank itself became something new, something rare. It hosted black-owned startups, funded scholarships for underserved youth, and ran financial literacy programs for returning citizens. Michael walked the halls quietly most mornings, nodding to staff, sipping black coffee, and sometimes pausing at the new marble plaque in the lobby. It read, "Founded in 1951 by Michael E. Jackson. Stolen in silence. Reclaimed in truth." 1 year later, a local news anchor interviewed him live. "Mr. Jackson, what would you say to those who claim you only came back for revenge?" Michael looked into the camera, his gaze steady. "Then they weren't listening. I came back for the truth. Revenge would have been burning it down. I chose to own it. And just like that, a man once laughed out of his own building became the face of Black legacy restored. Not with violence, not with anger, but with proof, patience, and a name too powerful to stay buried. So the next time you see someone walk in with a sack, maybe ask what's in it before you assume who they are. Because it might just be the deed to your damn building. Personal reflection and lesson. You know, for most of my life I was taught to stay humble. I kept my head down, work twice as hard and say half as much. But you know what I learned? Silence never saved anybody. When you've been wronged deeply, historically, systemically, you don't just get justice by waiting politely in line. You demand to be seen. And then you make damn sure they can't unsee you again. I didn't come back for revenge. I came back to put my name back where it belonged. Because sometimes, just existing out loud in a world that tried to erase you is the loudest kind of protest. Life lesson. And if there's one thing I hope you carry from this story, it's this. Power doesn't always wear a suit. And the truth doesn't need a logo to matter. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to stand in your truth long enough for silence to shatter. So whether you're a janitor, a genius, or a ghost they thought they buried, come back, come loud, come with proof. Because one day, they'll run out of places to hide your name. If this story made you feel something, anger, pride, grief, fire, anything at all, then don't let this be the last voice you hear. We tell these stories for the ones who never got to tell their own. The ones who were underestimated, erased, or labeled not the right fit. So hit that subscribe button, not just for the stories but for the voices, because here at Story Precious, we don't just tell stories, we remember them.